Welcome back, everybody, to Fly the Coop. We're so excited to have the opportunity to interview KC Chermak today, the owner and founder of Pillar Homes. Now, Pillar Homes was founded in 1995, and they are the designer and craft award-winning custom home creation, and they work throughout the Twin Cities metro area, located in the western suburbs near Lake Minnetonka. Pillar Homes is a builder that specializes in new custom homes, luxury lake homes, renovations, and project and real estate consultation. Welcome, KC. I'm so excited to interview you today.
Well, thank you for having me. This will be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So KC and I've passed KC's, he probably doesn't even remember this. I've passed your product several times in my career of 23 years. KC, you do beautiful, beautiful work. And we happened to run into each other about maybe 6-8 weeks ago, looking at an amazing little piece of real estate that your wife and yourself renovated that you are doing a VRBO in right now. Let's just start with that and talk a little bit about what's going on in Wayzata, Lake Minnetonka, and some of these special projects you've been consulting on and the one you did for yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's kind of fun. I have had Wayzata, or this Lake Minnetonka niche, has been a nice focus for Pillar Homes. It's not only where we build, but the market kind of comes to you if you do yourself and market properly. This particular house you're referring to now, in all the years, the 29 years of building, to date, in Wayzata, we've done upwards of 35 projects, and that's just in the city of Wayzata alone, which, as you know, geographically is not very big. So it's a lot of redevelopment stuff. The particular home that you're bringing up as far as a focus for this session has to do with get this, the very first property I ever purchased wearing a real estate hat and prior to being a builder. So I've owned this home since 1989, and kind of basically had it as a duplex situation, sitting right by the Wayzata Depot. Pretty fascinating, huh?
It's an amazing piece of real estate, everybody. It is just the charming character of this home and what you did in the preservation process. Yet it's just so aesthetically lovely and timeless. I think we need to get some visuals up so people can see it. So how did that evolve? What happened? In fact, wasn't it an property that was held in the family, if I recall, for quite some time?
Yes, yes, that's exactly correct. So my wife and I have been married since '89 also, and it wasn't her family for prior to that, probably about 20 years.
Wow.
And it was her uncle. And as it played out in life, it became available, and I was last on the list, but first to perform to purchase it. So it was just one of those things that just kind of worked out, and you just gotta be in the right place at the right time, I guess, and maybe seize the opportunities. So
Absolutely.
I did end up purchasing, lived there for quite a few years, did small renovations during that time frame. But this most current one, which was roughly 3 years ago, we did an addition and really went after historical preservation, as you mentioned, and kept the character of the home, but it updated it to current standards, and kind of created a real historical posh experience when you live there now.
It absolutely is that. So in its history, it kind of does have a duplex sense to it. It really was designed to be able to accommodate two different families now, and you're VRBOing both, correct? That's what you're doing?
Actually, only half right now.
Okay.
Since this was not a, I mean, I've had some sort of an income property or investment since '89.
Yeah.
So when I lived in half, I rented out half, and that's pretty much the way it was set up. And that was done due to some health concerns of Kippen's, my wife's family member. So they just used half the house, and that started a long time ago. We
Hmm.
just continued that concept, and now we just made it a little more in today's market, more
Yeah.
current with what's going on in the world. I mean, Airbnb and VRBO didn't exist back then, and
Hmm.
here it comes out of nowhere
Yeah, I know.
in our current time. So
Well, in the location. So for those of you that are not in the state of Minnesota or in the Twin Cities, Wayzata is a boutique community, very, very posh, very lovely. And it's bordering Lake Minnetonka. It's just loaded with beautiful restaurants, shops, and the homes are stunning, many of which have KC's stamp on them, either by renovation or build. So We'll dip back into investment in a moment because I do think that speaks to an audience right now, KC. Actually, I'm just going to bring it up right now. 40% of the buyer demographic, everybody, is in a stage in life where they are right sizing, and it's very experiential. People are looking for lifestyle experience. I know you feel the same way, KC. And in
Mhm.
doing this project that you did, it really is a concept that could be played out for somebody who wants to live in a community like Excelsior or Wayzata or a community around the lake and renovate something that is income producing. I think you did a beautiful job. We'll be putting a series of images up on this particular project. Then we'll leap to the luxury component of the work you do, which is a lot of. And you've got a couple projects right now you're in the works on that I believe you have plans completed. So that's right up the street from this home we're discussing that you renovated. Let's leap into that a bit and touch on what's happening specifically in Wayzata in trying to deal with the permit process and budget alignments with these builds, and how and some of the obstacles you're running into getting them completed. Like, what's the timeline and what's the process you're dealing with personally as a builder in Wayzata with the projects you're working on right now?
Well, timelines are hard to master, but when you start to get a history and an understanding in the city, which helps in all of them, both
Mhm.
Excelsior and Minnetonka area and other lake communities, you start to get into kind of the inner workings of cities. And Wayzata has hot buttons. It has to do with trees and hardcover. They also have some intense but manageable what's called water management situations so that we protect Lake Minnetonka and purify the water a little more before the water gets there.
Right,
So with hardcover water management, height and design requirements, and then really what happens, and you can't dictate this, but it's style, grace, and presence that you want the homes to look like they belong
right,
in Wayzata and
correct,
fit with the style and scale and things that will last for years.
correct.
You hope that you can meet all that. So timeframes are taking a little longer, even when it comes to demo and removal of a house if it's not salvageable.
Hmm.
Um, and these steps you kind of learn and maneuver the obstacles to get to what I call a clean slate so that you can go forward with a new home.
Right.
If it's not a new home, you have to do the same thing just about to go to a remodel or a large renovation too. So
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Now, when you're dealing with a community that's along a waterway like that, in comparison to something that you might work on in the city, what's the differential in your mind in terms of some of the steps involved for those looking at a lakeshore or near lakeshore experience in terms of a timeline?
yeah. As far as a timeline, I would say maybe it adds, maybe a month. Maybe I can dwindle it backwards because I'm very front loaded on that. I don't let it
Right.
sneak up later.
Mm-hmm.
It is, this particular area when you're within 1,000 feet of what's called shoreland overlay district means
Mm.
1,000 feet from an imaginary line of the water level at the lake, and you have to, if
Interesting.
any portion of your lot touches that in an imaginary line that the city has determined with the watershed district, it triggers actually a lower hardcover, but a way to go around it by using water management. So you have to slow down, purify, and filter the water before it leaves your site or have it penetrate the ground. So
Interesting.
it's some people look at it as it is clearly a hurdle you have to get over. Trust me on this.
Hmm. No, I know that's
But
why I'm bringing it up because it
yeah,
is part of. We get so much inquiry moving to the west side right now because we have so much activity happening in the city, and they're all looking for experiential. So one of the reasons I wanted KC on today, everyone, is I want to really speak to our local audience, especially about what that looks like and what's available. Because to the common eye, KC, as you well know, if you look in the MLS, there's very little.
yes.
But as you work with a KC of the world, you discover a whole avalanche of opportunity. And much of which we're noted for, KC, you may know, is seeking that out. So once we understand what the client's looking for, partnering and seeking out the avatar of seeking out the project, whatever that might be, whether it be a renovation or a tear down, and then understanding and front loading, you're looking at maybe 12 to 18 months between the design and permitting process and dealing with watershed and getting your dream home and living, happily ever after in a space near the water, near all this beautiful, beautiful land and being on Lake Minnetonka. So projects right now you're spearheading right now, and what you can tap into, share with the audience your business model and how Pillar Homes works in partnering with its clients to do
Well,
that.
experiential is a very key word,
Mm-hmm.
and that has to deal with enjoyment of the house you're living in, all the way down to visual benefits inside the home and functional benefits. Okay,
Right.
something like heated tile floors. That's experiential. It's very exciting, and it makes your experience more enjoyable when you live in a house. So,
Mm-hmm.
our company and what Pillar Homes has focused on, whether it was out in front of us or the market found us, and we have rode the wave of this type of building. We take opportunities that exist, usually redevelopment situations, something where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lots. Usually it's a 1-to-1 ratio, though, is a majority of the work, one house in, one house out.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a 2-for-1. Now I have an area in Wayzata you just mentioned, where I have one land experience. It's one oversized lot, and I'm going to make two
Mm-hmm.
lots out of it, and it fits actually a little bit better with the urban living. And
Right.
urban living means walkable to me. You correct? Or urban
Right.
living means
That's what we, yeah.
a more walkable thing. You don't need your car.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I think.
So
That's why Wayzata is such a draw in the Twin Cities area if they're looking for a lake life experience, because the community, as it's been designed, and I understand locally, both of us have been very involved in the city and in Wayzata for a very, very long time and watched its growth, and it's been significant. And I think anyone would agree that's a builder or in real estate throughout the Twin Cities area and other metropolitan areas in the country. The growth model's been hard, right? For those that are part of a community for a very long time, it's hard to watch old homes that people have, admired for 50 years and they're at that age, watch those homes come down. So balancing out the expectation of a community paired with the need for the client base when they're putting out a
yes.
$2 to $6 million product. I'm just going to put that range on it because that's probably realistic in terms of a low and a high. How do you do that? Because you're part of that community and you have been for your entire lifetime. So how do you deal with that? Because we have talked about it and it is an ongoing issue as the growth, we'll talk Wayzata specifically, has happened.
It is a juggling act. You become, I use a reference a lot of times to tree huggers, or people that, you know, protect trees.
Mm-hmm.
I have to cut trees down every now and then, but sometimes those trees are dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
or
I
they're
agree.
old,
Mm-hmm.
or they're in areas that they shouldn't be. So
Correct.
I protect trees, but I actually plant new ones to the ratio of almost 2 to 3 to 1 in replacement, and have done that for years all over Wayzata and
Nice.
or surrounding areas. We take great pride in that. So
Yeah. Yeah. You're
now
noted.
you jump to the architecture. Go
Mm.
ahead. Sorry about that. Now, if you jump to the architecture now,
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
well, you're noted. The reason I'm bringing this up is because you are noted for it. You have a beautiful technique and skill set, KC, from an outside observation, especially for somebody who loves historic homes and preservation. Your restoration work is phenomenal. And it should be certainly a pinnacle, a focus for many who want to follow in the footsteps of restoration and new construction on how to watch these communities continue to evolve. You're absolutely right, Casey, in the fact that there is a point where it's not sustainable to leave certain housing in place. It has to come down and be replaced. It's just the organic management of it. It's not sustainable or financially plausible to restore many of these homes. So what I think is cool and how what we'll dive into next is how you balance that out. So as you move through a community like Wayzata, it's cohesive with historic and new. That's what's so cool about your work.
thank you. It is. We take great pride. Everybody on that's part of our team, and it does start with me. But that holistic approach becomes first and paramount. The architectural approach and the visual benefits, both style, scope, and finished product, we hope at the end of the day fits in with Wayzata and actually sets it up for next generations to enjoy and enhance the neighborhoods that we're being involved into. That if that scope of what you're doing, it's not easy to get there over the years. It's something that you start to take pride in, and then I think buyers sense it, owners sense it, and so now organically, to be honest with you, I get calls from community members of people that want me to come and see their property ahead of time or
Right.
find these things and say, please help me evaluate this. I do trust your opinion. I want, I've seen what you do. I would, I would appreciate your view because you saved some, you removed some, you've enhanced neighborhoods, which is why
Right.
I'm kind of hopefully trusting you with what, my property needs something, and I believe you can bring me to the next stage,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're involved or not. Most people, move on. I have had some interesting situations. I don't know if you know this. On one site, in front of the city, I turned one property into 3 lots.
Yeah,
So
we
I
talked
was
about this. Mm-hmm.
yep, I was presenting to the city of Wayzata, and there was a house on there that was 105 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And in this particular case, the foundation was only a crawl space and it was crumbling underneath, but the house was pretty good.
Yeah.
So in collaboration with the city, I made a statement there. I said, look, if you can collaborate with me, the city, and put positive spin on what's taking place here, if this house can be moved or salvaged, I will fund some of it
Mm-hmm.
along with the new owner. And lo and behold, we did find one and we moved it about 6
Wow.
blocks and kept it in Wayzata.
Yeah, I didn't actually see the final product in that. So let's talk about that for a minute, because I have been involved with a few full house moves that have moved in the city. Did you build a foundation for that home then?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was a half lot that was available. It happened to be in the right spot. It met city requirements. I mean, it was like
Wow.
a jewel. But the person involved, I got lucky. I built the home this person lived in, and he was savvy enough because he owned another property, and he found out about this and approached me and said, "I think I'm your buyer,"
Very
because
cool.
he knew
Wow.
what pillar homes and how we thought and how we brought things to the table. And quite frankly, it's a lot of work. This was
Yeah.
not for the money. This was for the experience that I was involved and the effort in a situation in Wayzata that, well, as far as I know, Pillar Homes is the only one that's ever done this in Wayzata, and I
Yeah.
made a very outgoing effort. We moved it right down Lake Street. Literally came from the east end of Wayzata, brought it right by Cove, Gianni's, Caribou Coffee, right down the road, put it over by the post office, and we did it in the middle of the night. And that's how it works. It was very complicated. So once we got it to the new site, you leave it in the air because the site is just prepped, ready to go, and the
Right.
foundation was put in under the house, and then you lower the house onto the new foundation.
Yeah. It's a remarkable experience. It's a remarkable experience to watch. I would have loved to see that in video. I'm assuming somebody videotaped that, right?
Yes, yeah, we have a lot of photos, a lot of videos.
We'll have to add that too. We put this up on YouTube. So with Casey specifically, we'll be showing you a lot of visual here because this is a visual experience. Casey and the work you do is all about the visual. So that'll be fun. We'll get those from you. So when you are collabing with something like this, sometimes it's not about the money, is it, Casey? Sometimes it's about just doing the right thing and helping people through a transition, and helping them make a decision because you know you're going to be building that client relationship long term. Long term, I'm sure you've gone into homes where you're a partner in the restoration when they ask you for your opinion, and I'm sure there's times where it's not made sense to do a
That's
restoration, and then you maybe sell the product and you build something for them because it's not realistic to do what
yep,
they want, right?
yep,
So that's a
yep.
part of our audience. So let's talk about that process a little bit, step by step. What does that look like when you step into somebody, let's say an existing home, and you know that they're light and they want a certain look, and these projects are usually significant. What's the break point where you say you'd be better off selling this, freshening and selling it, and let's build what you want? At what point is that conversation driven? Is it by square footage? Is it by finishes? Is it by, the cost to do business because of materials and labor right now? What's the driving force around the make it, or I call it the love it or list it?
Yeah,
uh,
love it or list it.
and
Yeah, that's
yeah.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It is a fascinating question, and and money becomes, most of what this comes down to is money. I will tell you though that if someone like myself or Pillar Homes and the team that I have, um, since it's not always money and something else comes into the event of the decisions, which has to do with the community that you're in,
Mm-hmm.
Wayzata, Deep Haven, Cottagewood, Excelsior, Minnetonka Beach, areas that are not gridded neighborhoods that have history way deep, deep, even South Minneapolis, some of that stuff where
Right.
the community and the outcome is very viable option in the decision process. I just
Mm-hmm.
recently did it, Deep Haven over by the beautiful Deep Haven area, real close to the lake, but not on the lake. And it was an old farmhouse, and we evaluated staying in the property and remodeling,
Mm-hmm.
selling and moving into the neighborhood, and or the third one, um, doing nothing. I mean, we evaluated all the pros and cons to that, and
Right.
the money became very clear. But when you have a desire that's not totally that, I mean, the outcome is what's you tend to align with your clients then too. By the way,
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. In your experience, based on the level of how, what you create as a product, where do you find the financial break point is in dollars? Because the listener will, you know, have they're interested in knowing what does that look like? Your average renovation project on Lakeshore right now, if you're going to keep the house in place, and we'll figure an addition as part of, for a square footage of, let's say, 44,000 to 5,000 square feet as an end product, as a range. I'm not pinning you down for an exact number, but what does an average renovation budget look like? An average versus selling the product based on the market conditions right now
yeah, yeah,
and going out and building. Because this is a question I'm asked constantly. It's
yeah,
like, what does that differential look like? If I've got a home that I know I could sell for 1.2 million right now,
yep,
and I know that I want this kind of product and I'm breaching the 2 million mark, am I better off selling my $1.2 million product and building? And if I'm building, what are my limitations right now based on the current condition of the market? I understand we're dealing with a broad range in terms of affordability, right? And we'll say a 3,500 square foot product jewel. I call it a jewel, not a giant. And you're running at a 2.5 million by the time you're all done with that jewel.
yeah, yes,
Well, I'm really honing in on Wayzata right now because that's the market demographic for that area and the surrounding loop. Does it
yeah,
become very, going back again to my word experiential, does it become very client specific because of their passion for the location? Because the location's a big one there. What's the break point, I guess, between renovating and staying where you're at and
mm,
seeking out a whole new project and just starting over again? We both know how hard it is to retrofit existing homes. It's so hard, and
yeah,
you end up with so many limitations. And I've had this conversation pretty much with every single client I've got that wants to do an
yeah,
addition. Is it worth it? Because I'm dealing with the foundation challenge, or the addition won't flow properly based on the square footage that I want right now. So
yeah,
it doesn't align the balancing of the existing home to the new section, new portion of the home. There's no balance left. It's a common conversation. So
yeah.
if you were to try to, and I know it's not a simple one, but in your experience, how do you tackle that question? What would be the answer to something like that?
Yeah, it is a mathematical equation that you do drive. When you're building new, obviously, and you were to say, um, I remembered the third, the option that I mentioned to this young couple in Deep Haven. It was do nothing, right, or just sell the house
Right,
and then renovate. The third option that I misspoke on was you tear it down and you build in your existing site.
right.
So I have a lot of those times where people are trying to figure out, because then you're
Yeah,
not looking for a new property, you actually have the property,
right.
but suddenly your value of your house becomes your lot cost,
Correct.
and mathematically that you have to have a long-term play and really do it right. So it even
Yeah.
becomes more important to play off the right house then on that property, because your land costs are now what you bet your acquisition costs.
Right, which has a play in this conversation because that's, seriously expensive right now. The land acquisition,
Yeah.
we won't just say lakeshore or even inland, when you're looking at Lake Minnetonka specifically, but that's all over the metro. Our land values are creeping up, up, up quickly, quickly. And if somebody's been in their home a long time, their investment in may be so economical that even though it's heartbreaking, the outcome they're looking for really requires the house to come down.
Yes.
And the investment they have in totally is probably still well undervalued for what the land is valued at based on what's going on with the market right now.
Yep.
So I think that's a very valid point to pull up for those that are uh, in areas where they really are passionate, because we all say location, 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 especially near water. That goes for anywhere, everyone in the state of Minnesota or Wisconsin. This conversation rings true for sure. If you've been there a long time and you've been deliberating and need more, need something different, I would say that this is worthwhile picking up the phone and talking about, because uh, personally, I'm running into a lot of challenge when it comes to getting the outcome that the client wants as it relates to renovating the existing space.
Yep.
It's just really hard to do.
Yep. So renovations will stay as option two.
Yeah.
Okay. And you do have to find a way to blend in. I and Pillar, we only focus on what I would call holistic approaches to renovations.
Mm-hmm.
So I will not look at a band-aid approach. It's not part of my model,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't believe it's appropriate.
Right. I
So
agree.
in my world, a renovation is different than a remodel. Okay, a remodel could be just a porch added off a house, and you get another room. And
Right.
but a renovation is fits underneath this holistic lifestyle approach, experiential, something that's very positive. So you have to take the old part of the house and repurpose it with the new. And what
Mm-hmm.
that allows you to do is suddenly the old dining room becomes the entry of the house because it's
Right.
more focal to traffic flow and new situations that you want to create. And the old kitchen becomes the mudroom because you're adding a new kitchen that fits with the new experiences you need with a new kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. And
Right.
that's when you can strike a chord with people that do want to remodel either something that they own or renovate something they're going to buy. You follow me?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
that is an approach that is eye-opening experience for some people when it is laid out for them that way. So
Mm-hmm. Right. Agree. Completely agree with you on that. So let's delve into the projects you're in the middle of right now. You want to fill everybody in on what you're in the middle of now?
well,
Give some examples.
building on the west side and having a nice, I'll call it hub from Wayzata, and that we spin off from there. I have an infill project where we're finishing a brownstone project right in the hub of Wayzata, and I'll use
Nice.
the historic post office in Wayzata, which a lot of people know about. And this is a completion of 4 brownstones that have been kind of time forgot this location on a project that was approved over 15 years ago. And now
Wow.
the market has caught up and this opportunity presented itself. I have 4 new projects of land where I either did a 2-for-1 or a 1-to-2, where I bought one piece of land that time forgot in Wayzata. And yes, that does happen everywhere and anywhere in the Twin Cities, but
Right.
you just have to be able to handle, understand, and wish to address things that maybe other people didn't want to.
Right.
So again,
Right.
that holistic approach, water, trees, character with the neighborhood, scale, scope, and then complete design integrity that fits with the community. So I have created 2 new lots, of which I've sold 1, and I have 1 available.
Okay.
And I'm doing that also right near the brownstones in this, what I'll call the central core of Wayzata. Very walkable. Everything I'm talking about is walkable. So once you get there, you can leave your car where it is, and you can get to just about anything you need to in this kind of chic urban setting that
Yeah.
is taken off in these little villages. Wayzata is referred to by many people as a village, and it's
It
kind of
is
a
a
cool
village.
adjective.
Yeah, it is a village. We have communities like this all over the Twin Cities.
Yes.
Wayzata is a special one because it's on a mass of water. By far, I think it's probably the most premier small village on Lake Minnetonka. I think we both agree. So, Casey, if you were to outline a budget range on the projects that you're working on right now, what does that range look like in terms of high and low?
With land, probably don't need to get in land costs and things like that, but with land, I would say low is 1.8 to 2 million, and then the top end might be 3.5,
Right.
in fairly tight Wayzata.
Yeah.
One of the things that happens because you have urban lots, you can't build, large houses. You just
Yeah.
it's feasibly not possible due to the stuff I mentioned, water management. So there's all these little parameters that are created by both codes, watershed districts, and all blended together, which in many people's minds, that I think in years past that might have been considered negative, but actually it's a positive
I
because
agree.
it contains scope, scale, and it forces creativity. So
Correct.
in our world, it's a passion and it's exciting to do it, but it's the box is created and you
Mhm.
create character inside that box as opposed to the other way.
So I call that, I'll say it again, I call that the jewel, not the giant concept.
Yes.
And I think that we're in a time in the world right now, Casey, that I call it the youngification of our market demographic. And experiential isn't just about living in the home, experiential is living life. And those that are trending into the consumption of our real estate are looking at it through a different lens than we've viewed real estate over the past 100 years. And what you're creating right now is absolutely mindful and purposeful and has a sense of, order and purpose, I guess is the word I'm looking for, in a way that construction in our past decades hasn't, in my personal opinion. That's what I see. So, as we're working with an urban experience and you're developing, whether it be Wayzata or any other urban experience in the Twin Cities, I do think that albeit you're spending a little bit more money, when you prorate that out over the next 20 years of your life and you look at the quality and sustainability of the product that's going up, that all plays into making that next decision. So now the question is how long? How long does it take? Somebody decides that's what they want and they understand the sustainability and functionality component of it. And they've made the decision, yes, I'm going to renovate, which is a separate timeline, by the way, than building. We'll separate those two. Let's talk new build. What's the timeline these days? Because of the supply chain, which we don't have to delve into, but is a real thing. We are dealing with that domino effect with supply chain issues. So, what's the timeline looking like these days for you guys?
And I'm going back to design. So you have to
Yeah,
create on paper what you're going to create in real
right,
life. So
right.
if you go back to design, I'd put it 15 to 18 months.
Yeah,
Could that be condensed? There are many ways to condense. A lot of what I do before I get involved in properties, buying completely or end games, is create concepts that can go there that I
right.
know will fit with the grades, the surrounding environments, the trees, a whole checklist of things that need to be evaluated. So these concepts actually become reality a lot more than people think.
Mm-hmm.
Because if in fact you have all the traits and the ability and the vision for an area, a
Yeah,
lot for what should go somewhere,
right.
I always kind of go down that path ahead of time so that the slate and the paper for creativity has already started a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because the limitations or the parameters are there. And
Right.
it's sometimes very hard for buyers, clients to put them together. That's
I
kind
agree.
of our job.
Right. Agree. So you're
I
saying that the design piece of it, then, once you meet the client, you could spend a year and a half, once you've identified the location, you could spend a year and a half really working through the dynamic of the design component of the project.
Well, that would be moving very slow.
Mhm.
I can move that forward quite a bit. And
Yeah.
every
Okay.
homeowner is a little different
Yeah.
because if it did take that long, I mean, the
Yeah.
client would have to lock in on the property and have ownership rights to it and all that, whether they do or Pillar Homes does.
Right.
Um, so moving forward, one of the things that we tend to do is move that forward for them, because yes, time is an issue for people. I mean, your excitement level needs to be accelerated if you wish it to be. So Pillar Homes,
Right.
we have the ability to move that forward actually,
Mm-hmm.
because we will come up with design ideas that they have never thought about
Absolutely.
faster,
Uh-huh.
which meet all the code and building and requirements that need to be employed into this, as opposed to saying, just figure it out on your own. And
Right.
so by doing that, I can shorten the window.
Mm-hmm.
It's very funny. I have one of my projects that I spent in Wayzata. It's bought one lot. It was very large, and I turned it into two. And I did concept floor plans for each one of them as I was purchasing it, because I wanted to make sure I could get a feel for fit and finish and all that stuff
Right.
in real world. And I
Yeah.
did it a year and a half ago, so it's your 18-month criteria.
Right.
And the plan was so good, I just matched up with the buyer. I don't think they're going to change anything in it. They're like, "How did you know what to do here?" Like, well,
That's great.
I evaluated grade. I
Mhm.
evaluated hardcover. I evaluated the trees. I evaluated views. I evaluated sun exposure. I
Right.
evaluated privacy. I evaluated the train in Wayzata. You
Yeah.
have to evaluate where it is in proximity. I could list out all the
All this
criteria.
stuff.
It was
Right.
it was so spot on. They're like, it's as if you went in ahead and took it out of our. I'm like, well, that's the whole idea. I mean, the
Right.
idea is that when you're in the flow of the market and you
Mm-hmm.
match all the other criteria with it, suddenly you answer the questions and without even asking them. If that makes
Right.
sense.
Totally. So to close the loop, let's just use this as an example because it's real life. You found this property, you purchased the property, you got the permit approved with the city to turn it into two lots. And then how long did it take you to do that and then put in front of them the plan that you put together that's really not going to be changed by you've sold one of these two before construction
Yes.
already? And that's your preference. Most of the builders are speccing. I mean, they're not speccing. They're creating the plans and they're pitching on the end result so they can custom build the product for the most part.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the timeline from acquisition of the land to a plan was how many months?
Um, that would be 6 to 12 months. It,
That's what I
it does
thought.
vary. If there's an application required through the city to do
Hmm.
extensive things, that's probably about 8 months.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
actually before the council, before the planning commission, paperwork in,
right.
engineering, um, sometimes a little longer. But again, if you're front loaded with understanding the rules, the goals, the outcome that you can create, um, it can move a little faster. That comes with years of experience and a holistic, in-depth analysis of these communities.
I agree with
You
you.
know,
Yeah. To be really partnering with somebody that's really has clarity on how to drive that process is the reason I'm asking the question because
yeah,
people get in the lurch. Like I'm dealing with two different clients right now in the city. Both of them, we have a whole list actually that want to be in Wayzata, but I'm going to focus on these two families specifically. And it's been an ongoing conversation in one case over just the last few months and the other for 2 years, as an example. And really honing into, well, I'm not ready yet, but I'll probably be ready in a year. Well, then we need to use that year.
yes,
We need to use that year to plan because you don't get a new house in a year. We got to start right now for you to have a new house in 18 months. You know what I mean? I don't think the general public really understands that in order to front load a jewel that's really well crafted, there is a lot of front loading work that's done to do that.
very much so.
Very much so. So
Yep,
that's the core of what I'm trying to get to as we're kind of moving into the tail end of this first meeting. I could talk to you for hours, Casey, about this.
yeah,
So if on a high level outlining, right now you have approximately 6 projects in the works
yep,
in Wayzata, price points at 1.8 up to 3.5 million.
correct.
Um, project projections are probably anywhere. I'm going to just put words in your mouth, 8 months to 18 months, depending on who you're dealing with
Yep,
and the ability to vet a custom project quietly because of just the knowledge, networking, and awareness of the community. And understanding of some of the dominoes, if you will, that fall based on aligning the right families with the right projects. So, um, what we're going to do, Casey, is line up your website and your direct contact phone number when we put this up on all the social platforms. Is there anything else you want to share with your audience today about coming into spring and summer and what's happening in the hood when it comes to just life and what's happening in terms of development and possibly building the home of their dreams, their
Well,
home?
I will. Here's what I want to share with everybody. The rules are the same. Um, the experience to get it done is changing. It's always changing.
Mm-hmm.
It's why having the right professional involved is important. So if I had to say that holistic approach in the core of the professional that's going to do this is what's the ultimate importance. So
Mm-hmm.
if rates move a little bit or a product is not as available, inventory is low, trust me, there's plenty of spaces to do our projects. You have to find them, we
Mm-hmm.
expose them. Yeah,
That's right.
we partner with people like yourself that understand little jewels that are out there that are very raw, and how do we turn them into specific jewels for clients.
Yeah,
They
I
are out there, they
uh,
exist. Just do not follow the generic. That's all I want to say. That
mm,
and they're there to be had. You just have to want and wish to explore and enjoy the ride. And that's what I believe. Pillar Homes is found a way to take some of the nuisance stuff. We turn it into a positive and give you the
right.
positive that you are going to enjoy. So
Absolutely. It's all mindset, Casey.
yes,
You create a vision in your mind. And I always say with our group, we seek it out.
yes,
Seek out the dream and embrace the experience because, oh my gosh, the outcome after you're done is a lifetime of joy and happiness and memories and all goodness. So, I'm going to leave it on that note.
yes.
Absolutely
That's
lovely,
perfect.
lovely to spend some time and visit with you today. I'm really excited to delve deeper into some of the work we're doing personally on the team and excited to align with Pillar Homes here over the next months. Excited about this summer. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, that summer came in full force, and the market has come
Yeah,
with it.
it did.
So yeah.
It sure did. All right, Casey, thank you so much. KC Chermak, everybody, Pillar Homes, look them up. We've got the website below. It's a pleasure. See you next time on